Good morning, children. Stay safely at home. So, in the alternating current circuit, alternating current chapter, already I have taught you the power in AC circuit, but that topic is removed. So, after that, wattless current also I taught, that is also removed, and after that, bandwidth and quality factor is there, that is also removed, and after that. Most probably choke coil is there, that is also removed. So I am not teaching, although the whatever I taught from the alternating current chapter, power in AC circuit and wattless current are removed, so you may not study that, and the rest of the part whatever is removed I have not taught, and I am not teaching you also. Then next topic I am starting with LC oscillation. LC oscillation circuit we just make like this, that a capacitor and an inductor, they are joined together, and then you see they are connected with a two-way keys, and there is a battery here. So first of all, when you are pressing this one, you are just connecting the key at the point A, then you see the capacitor is getting fully charged. Alright, now a fully charged capacitor, when it is connected to an inductor, then that is known as LC circuit. Alright, what is LC circuit? When a fully charged capacitor is connected to an inductor, then that is known as LC circuit. Now LC circuit is very interesting, so try to understand the physics behind it. So the moment you are connecting a charged capacitor with the inductor, then the first point you have to understand is that the capacitor is having an energy Q square by 2C. This energy will be in the form of electrical energy, and it will exist as an electric field between the two plates of the capacitor. The question comes, conceptual question comes on this topic, so you have to remember it. When a capacitor is fully charged, what form of energy the capacitor is having? Capacitor is having the energy in the form of electrical energy. It exists as electric field, a uniform electric field within the plates of the capacitor. Alright, now what you have done? We have connected it to an inductor. So what will happen? Current will start growing through the inductor, isn't it? So when the current will start growing, you see here how the current will pass from the positive plate via the inductor to the negative plate. So in the first, what will happen? Current will grow in the circuit. Alright. Now when the current is growing in the circuit, then what is happening? Along the inductor, electromagnetic induction will take place, and due to induction what will happen? An EMF will be induced, and not only that, inductor, it will gain some energy. You know that whenever a changing current passing through an inductor, then inductor gets the energy, and how much? When the current will attain the maximum value I0, okay, then what will be the energy stored in the inductor? It will become half L I naught square. So you see, when the current is flowing or the positive charge is moving from the positive plate via the inductor to the negative plate, then the current is growing in the circuit, but what is happening to the capacitor? Capacitor is losing its charges, capacitor is losing its energy, capacitor within the plates of the capacitor, electric field is decreasing. Alright, and what is happening to the inductor? Through the inductor, what will happen? Magnetic field will develop, current will grow through the inductor, current will become its peak value, attain its peak value I naught, and at that time inductor will gain the maximum energy, and what will be the energy? Half L I naught square. By the time what will happen to the capacitor? Look at the diagram. No charge is there, means capacitor has lost all its charges. So capacitor is now not having any energy, whereas inductor has got the entire energy. Alright. Now when the inductor has got the energy, then remember that within the inductor, energy always exists in the form of magnetic energy, in the form of magnetic field. Alright, so these are the basic two differences between a capacitor and inductor. In case of capacitor, when it is fully charged, then the energy persists within the plates of the capacitor in the form of electrical energy, in the form of electric field. But in case of inductor, when it is energized, then what kind of energy the inductor will have? Inductor will have the magnetic energy in the form of magnetic field within it. That's why I hope you can understand. I have drawn the lines of magnetic lines of forces. Alright. So you see, it will behave like a this one solenoid, or rather you can say, because you know that in case of solenoid the lines of forces are like this. And what will be the energy? Half L I naught square. Alright. Now what is the next step? Now when the current will become maximum, then as the capacitor is fully discharged, then what will happen? Again the current here will flow in the same direction for some time, but magnetic field within the inductor, it will start dying down, and this dying magnetic field will produce an EMF, and due to the EMF in the same direction as that of the current, so the current will flow in the same direction, and as a result what will happen? The capacitor will now get charged, but it will get the charge in opposite direction. So you see here what is happening to the capacitor now. The capacitor is getting charged, but charged in the opposite direction. And by the time the capacitor get fully charged, so the energy will be transferred to the capacitor, and the dying magnetic field within the inductor all die down completely. Magnetic field will become zero. So what will happen to the energy of the inductor? Energy of the inductor is becoming zero. Alright. So after that what will happen? Again the capacitor, it will start sending the current, you see, in the opposite direction. First the current was moving in this direction, isn't it? Now when the capacitor is getting oppositely charged, now again the same thing will happen. Means now the current will flow in the opposite direction. Capacitor will be slowly discharged, and it will be fully discharged after some time. Its energy will become zero, and during that time inductor will gain the energy. How it will gain the energy? In the form of magnetic field, and its energy will become maximum, again half L I 0 square. So you see what is happening between the L and C. Between L and C, the total energy of the circuit is getting oscillated. When capacitor is fully energized, then inductor has no energy. Then capacitor slowly transferring its energy to the inductor. Inductor is fully energized, capacitor has no energy. Again the same thing will be, the same cycle will be repeated, but in the opposite direction. So it is known as the LC oscillation. And in LC oscillation, the most important point is that the total energy of the circuit remain constant. Although here we assume one thing, we assume that there will be no loss of electrical energy in the form of heat energy on the way, on the path, because you are joining the capacitor plate with the inductor by the connecting wires. So along that connecting path there will be no loss of electrical energy. That's why this LC circuit is also known as tank circuit. You know, in water tank what you do? In water tank you can store water. Now in this one, this is an electrical oscillation. So you see, in this electric circuit, LC circuit, what we can do? We can store the energy either in the form of electric energy or in the form of magnetic energy within the circuit. That's why LC circuit is also known as tank circuit. Alright. So regarding the LC circuit, what are the points you have to remember? When the capacitor fully charged, then what is the energy? Half Q square by 2C. Then in which form the energy exists within the capacitor, in the form of electrical energy, in the form of electric field within the plates. Then when the inductor gets the energy, then how the energy exists within the inductor? Energy exists within the inductor in the form of magnetic energy, in the form of magnetic field. Alright, so that's all about the LC circuit or LC oscillation. Now next one is resonating circuit, resonating electrical circuits. Alright, now we have already studied it that time, that LCS circuit, and here we are considering the series resonance circuit. There may be a parallel resonating circuit, again that part is removed from the portion, so I am just discussing only the series resonating circuit. So what is series resonating circuit? When L, C and R joined in series with the alternating current source, then you know the EMF is given by E is equal to E0 sin omega t. I, the current, lags behind D. I hope you can remember the phasor diagram for it. Then I is I0 sin omega t minus phi. It means that I is lagging behind D by an angle phi. So phi is the phase angle between E and I. And you know I is given by E by Z. Z is the impedance of the circuit, means the resistance offered by the combination of L, C and R. And the impedance is given by under root R square plus omega L minus 1 upon omega C whole square. And how you can get the phase angle between E and I? Tan phi is omega L minus 1 upon omega C divided by R. Now at resonance, what happened? At resonance, when we say that resonance is occurred, then resonance occurs when the current in the circuit is maximum. So when the current in the circuit will be maximum, when impedance is minimum. And we have studied this, that under which condition resonance occur? When XL is equal to XC, because you see, when XL equal to XC, then Z becomes minimum and Z become equals to R. So at resonance, the circuit completely becomes a pure resistive circuit. And in that case, you know what is the frequency of oscillation? Frequency of oscillation is given by 1 by 2 pi under root LC. Is that clear? And what are the other conditions? That XL and XC, when they are equal, then what happens? The voltage drop across the inductor and across the capacitor, they are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. Means VL equal to VC, they are equal in magnitude but opposite in phase. Alright, if VL is acting in the upward direction, then VC will be 180 degree behind it. And other conditions is that when it happens, then you see omega L minus omega C is 0, so phi is 0, phi becomes 0. These are the conditions I am writing at resonance. Remember, don't be confused. These are the condition. This is the general condition, okay, and this is a special condition at resonance. What is happening? At resonance, phi is equal to 0, so E and I are in same phase. Is that clear? So these are the important points regarding the resonance. For the resonating circuit, you have to remember. Alright, then the next one is when the, now it is, if you plot current versus frequency graph, then what will happen? The nature of the graph, it will be like this. You see, at the resonating frequency F0, current is maximum. And remember that about this vertical line, the curve should be symmetric on both sides. Okay. Then, if you plot impedance versus frequency graph, then impedance versus frequency will be, the nature will be same as that of current, but it will be reverse, isn't it? Because when current increases, then impedance decreases. Just so look at the diagram. The same graph I have just drawn upside down, isn't it? So you see at F0, Z is minimum, and in this case also the graph will be symmetrical about this vertical line passing through the resonating circuit. Then this graph is this one is very important. What we have done on the same axis, we have plotted Z, XL and XC, means the impedance, inductive reactance, capacitive reactance along the y axis. and along x-axis frequency is plotted, frequency of the source, alternating current source. Then you know that if this is the resonating frequency, so how I have drawn the graph? First I have drawn the dotted line passing through F0. Then I have drawn the current graph. The current graph will be like this, you see here. Alright, then what will be the impedance? Impedance will be just opposite to the current. So this is the Z impedance graph. Then we know XL versus F graph is a straight line. So XL versus F graph is a straight line passing through the origin. Then XC versus F graph is a rectangular hyperbola. So here one point you have to remember. The rectangular hyperbola, when you will draw, then it must pass through the point where the graph for XL cutting the line, vertical line at F0, means this XC graph, it should pass through this point where XL is cutting the vertical axis, vertical line, not axis, sorry, vertical line passing through the resonating frequency. So all these graphs I have drawn on the whiteboard, all the five, these two graphs, it was already drawn when I discussed the topic, the inductive reactance and capacitive reactance. But here this is the combined graph. So these are all very, very important topic for your board exam. So kindly everyone should practice all the graph. Not only practice, you must understand also, remember also what is the physics behind all these discussions. Now where this series resonance circuit, LC circuit, generally it is used. It is used any kind of tuning circuit. Means any kind of receiver circuit where we are doing the tuning. Means just you consider the most common example, if you consider a radio receiver. In radio receiver, what we do, there is a knob. By rotating the knob, we can just catch the signal signal sent from a particular radio station. Now you know that all the radio station, for all the radio station, different frequencies are allotted for their broadcast. So when they are broadcasting the signal, then they will lie within the bandwidth, means within the given frequency range. Bandwidth I have not taught, so I should not use the term. Bandwidth means the given frequency range. Within that frequency range, they generally do the broadcast. So what is happening here? You see how is the radio receiver circuit. There is a LC circuit. Okay, and here the capacitance is a variable capacitor. Alright, so what is happening? With the antenna there is an inductor and it is coupled totally with this inductor of the LC circuit. So when this antenna is receiving any frequency, any signal from a particular radio station, then it will just develop due to mutual induction, produced by the mutual induction, potential difference of particular frequencies. Alright, so when you are just rotating the tuning knob, then what you are doing, you are changing the value of the capacitor. So when you are changing the value of the capacitor, then what is happening? Just see the resonating frequency 1 by 2 pi under 1 by under 2 pi under root LC, it is also changing. So when the frequency of this one LC circuit becomes equal to the frequency of the signal sent from a particular radio station, then what happens? Due to that signal, current become maximum within the circuit, and what I can say, whatever that radio station broadcasting, you can listen to that signal, because what will happen? For that particular signal, current will become maximum, and for the other signal, the current will become negligibly small or weak. So this is the way the LC circuit, LC series resonating circuit is used in the radio receiver for tuning purposes. Now next is alternating current generator, which you studied in details in 10th standard. So very first I will discuss the topic. You know, in an alternating current generator, it works on the principle of electromagnetic induction. How it works on the principle of electromagnetic induction? When a coil rotates in a magnetic field, then the magnetic flux linked with the coil changes. As a result, an EMF will be induced, alternating EMF will be induced in the coil, and alternating alternating current will pass through the coil. Alright, and what is the structure of this one? The alternating current generator, there are two concave pole pieces of permanent magnet, north and south pole. These are concave pole pieces, and within that there is a rectangular coil. One end of the coil, it is passing, it slips across a circular slip ring. S1 is known as slip ring, S-L-I-P, slip ring, and then the other end it can slip across the circumference of the second slip ring S2. Then S1 and S2, they are connected with the carbon brushes B1 and B2, and then across B1 and B2 load is connected. So if you consider, suppose this is the coil is rotating like this. So you see this one, it is experiencing a force in the upward direction. So if you apply the Fleming's right hand rule, according to Fleming's right hand rule, you see my thumb, it is along the direction of the force. Then the first finger is along the direction of the magnetic field. Then the middle finger will show you the direction of the current. So if you apply the Fleming's right hand rule, which is also known as the generator rule, then you see what are you getting, that current is passing in the coil along this direction. So if you look at it, the current is coming here, then through the carbon brushes the current is passing. So through the load the current is passing from right to left, and as you have, if you consider the mathematical expression, then you can write down according to Faraday's law, E is given by minus ddt of n phi b, and phi b you can write it as b dot a, and b dot a is ba cos omega t. Okay, and omega is the angular velocity of rotation of the coil. So it will be ddt of nba cos omega t. Nba you can take outside the derivative. Then ddt of cos omega t is omega minus sin omega t. So minus minus is becoming plus. You are getting nba omega sin omega t, and nba omega is nothing but the peak value of the EMF. So what is the alternating EMF induced in the AC generator? It is given by E is equal to E0 sin omega t, and where E0 is equal to NAB omega. And remember, in these cases, few points you have to remember. When the plane of the coil, remember that this omega t, theta, it is the angle between A and B. So when the coil, look at my hand, if you consider that the coil is, plane of the coil perpendicular to the magnetic field, then you see magnetic field is along this direction and A also along this direction. So what is the angle between A and B? 0. So EMF will be 0. Induced EMF will be 0. So when the plane of the coil is perpendicular to the direction of the magnetic field, then EMF induced in the coil is 0. But just look at the orientation of the coil. Then maximum number of lines of forces crossing the area of the coil perpendicularly. So what comment you can make? That magnetic flux linked with the coil is maximum. So when the magnetic flux is maximum, when the plane of the coil is perpendicular to the direction of the magnetic field, and at that position EMF induced in the coil is 0. And when the plane of the coil is parallel to the direction of the magnetic field, then you say this is the direction of B and this is the direction of A. So what is the angle between them? 90 degree. So what will be the EMF? EMF will be maximum. But when the orientation of the coil is like this, then you see almost no lines of force crossing the coil perpendicularly. So what will be the magnetic flux linked with the coil? Magnetic flux linked with the coil will be 0, but EMF induced in the coil will be maximum. So these are the two cases you are supposed to remember, and you are supposed to learn and remember this relation related with the alternating current generator. Another point, why the concave pole pieces are used? Because concave pole pieces produce a radial magnetic field. Alright, that is the reason that why concave pole pieces are used. So that's all about the AC generator. Then the next topic is transformer. Next is transformer. You know what is a transformer? Transformer is a device which can change alternating voltage. I repeat, what kind of voltage transformer can change? Alternating voltage. It can't do anything with the direct one. Okay, so that's why it is very important to remember the transformer is the device which can change. I have used the term change. It means what? It can either increase or decrease the alternating voltage as well as the alternating current. Transformer, it also works on the principle of electromagnetic induction. Now, what is the basic structure of a transformer? There is a rectangular core made up of soft iron. Then on one side there a coil is wound. That coil is connected to the alternating EMF, which one you want to change. Alright, so this coil which is connected to the alternating voltage you want to change, that is known as the primary coil. Just in front of the primary coil, on the other side of the rectangular soft iron core, there is another coil wound, that is known as the secondary coil. And across the secondary coil, output voltage is measured. Now, if you consider the structure of the transformer, the transformer is made in such a way that primary coil and the secondary coil, they are magnetically coupled with each other. What is the meaning of this sentence I have said? Magnetically coupled with each other. It means the magnetic flux linked with the primary is associated. Entire magnetic flux linked with the primary is associated, is linked with that of the secondary coil. Means magnetic flux linked with the primary equal to magnetic flux linked with the secondary. That is for ideal transformer. Ideal thing is not available in practice. So this is the working condition. So what is happening, just you see, when the alternating voltage will pass, alternating current will pass through the primary coil, then the magnetic flux linked with the primary will change. So the magnetic flux linked with the secondary will also change. So an EMF will develop across the secondary. Now what will be the mathematical relation? Let us try to find out. Now as it works on the principle of electromagnetic induction, so we have to take the help of Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So if you apply the Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction from the primary coil, you can write the EMF induced in the primary, EP, is given by minus NP. NP is the total number of turns of the primary into d phi b dt. Phi b is the magnetic flux associated with the primary. So exactly in the same manner, if you apply the Faraday's laws for the secondary, you can write ES, the EMF induced in the secondary, will be given by minus NS d phi b dt. Now here, I hope you have observed, you see here, for primary also I have written phi b, I have not written phi p, and here I have not written phi s. Why? Because I said it already that primary and secondary coiled are magnetically coupled. So the magnetic flux linked with the primary, phi b, is equal to the magnetic flux linked with the secondary. So these are the two relations. If you apply the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, you are getting. So if you divide this two equation, what are you getting? EP by ES is equal to NP by NS, the most important relation. And I hope you can remember, in 10th standard you have written like this: output is the secondary, so we prefer to write output by input ratio. So we write like this: ES by EP is equal to NS by NP. Alright, this is the one relation. And you know, NS by NP, it is also known as the turn ratio or transformer ratio. Okay, now in this case you see, although the voltage, so you see, if you make NS bigger, number of turns in the secondary, if it is more than the number of turns in the primary, then what will happen? Means you are making NS bigger than NP. So you see what is happening? Output is becoming bigger than the input. So that kind of transformers are known as the step up transformer. Alright. Now step up transformer, in which substation step up transformer is used? I hope you can remember. Step up transformer is used only in grid substation. Alright, I am coming to the point next. And next is, if Ns is less than Np, means number of turns in the secondary is less than number of turns in the primary, then what will happen? Es will be less than Ep, means output will be less than input. So in this case, what you are doing? You are decreasing the voltage, and that kind of transformer is known as the step down transformer. In all the other substation, leaving the grid substation, generally step down transformers are used. Alright. Another relation is that, as although we are increasing or decreasing the voltage, but it will also obey the law of conservation of energy. So you cannot create energy, you cannot destroy energy. So what is the energy or the energy associated with the primary? You can write it as EPIPT. And what is the energy associated with the secondary? You can write it as ESIS into T. So you see, you are getting EP by ES is equal to IS by IP. Means in this case, ES by EP is equal to NS by NP. Then you can write it as IP by IS. Alright. What does it mean? When the voltage is more, then the current is less. So when the primary voltage is more, then primary current is less. And when the secondary voltage is more, then the secondary current is less. That's why we sometimes say this way also, that transformer, step up transformer is a transformer which convert low voltage high current to a high voltage low current. Alright. And this is coming from the conservation of law of conservation of energy. Alright. Now in this case, we have assumed that for a transformer there is means the energy associated with the primary is equal to energy associated with the secondary. But as I already mentioned, ideal things are not available in practice. So in practice, there are different ways by means of which the transformer loses energy. Means there are different ways of losing energy. Means we can say the output energy is less. Now what are the energy losses in transformer? The first one is known as copper loss. This energy losses in transformer, so in details I taught you in 10th standard. So I am teaching it first. So copper loss, what is copper loss? You know that primary and secondary coil, they are made up of copper. So when the primary current and secondary current is passing through the primary and secondary coil, then what is happening? The heat will develop according to Joule's heating effect. Alright. So this heat produced, it is nothing but a part of the input energy is lost in the form of heat energy, which is not at all useful form of energy. So this loss of input energy in the form of heat across the primary and secondary coil is known as the copper loss. Alright. So how to minimize the copper loss? Copper loss you can minimize either by using primary coil, by using a thick copper coil as a primary, or thick coil for the secondary. We can minimize the copper loss. Then next one is known as the flux loss. What is flux loss? As I told you that the magnetic flux associated with the primary should be equal to magnetic flux linked with the secondary. But sometimes it may not happen. That magnetic flux linked with the secondary may be due to some fault in the transformer. It may happen that magnetic flux linked with the secondary is less than that with the primary. In that case, what will happen? Certain amount of input energy will be lost in the form of magnetic flux. So that is known as the flux loss. How to minimize flux loss? You must learn all the losses and as well as how to minimize the loss. So how to minimize the flux loss? Instead of taking as a open core, we take a rectangular closed core. Why rectangular closed core? When you will take a rectangular closed core, then the probability of the magnetic flux loss, it will decrease, because you see, just look at it. These two are same. This side and this side, they are same. So how to minimize the flux loss? By using a closed rectangular soft iron core, one can minimize the flux loss. Then the next one is known as the eddy current loss. What is eddy current loss? you know that due to the electromagnetic induction, when the alternating current is passing through the primary as well as the secondary, then through the rectangular core, a current will develop, which is the EG current. So this EG current, it is where from the energy due to the ED current is coming from the input energy. So the loss of energy, input energy in the form of ED current within the rectangular core is known as ED current loss. How to minimize ED current loss? By using laminated thin soft iron core. I hope you can remember. It should be laminated, and instead of taking a big thicker core, what we do, we just cut it into small thin pieces, and that thin pieces are means over every thin pieces insulating paint is coated. That is known as lamination. So laminated thin soft iron core is used to minimize the ED current loss. Then the fourth one is known as the hysteresis loss. So what is hysteresis loss? Now in this case, what is happening, that whenever alternating current is passing through the primary and secondary, the core will be magnetized and demagnetized alternately. So while magnetizing the core, certain amount of energy is needed, and while demagnetizing the core also, certain amount of energy is needed. Means for one complete cycle of magnetization and demagnetization of the core, certain amount of input energy is lost. So that loss is known as the hysteresis loss. Alright. Now hysteresis loss can be minimized by using the material of the core as soft iron, because for soft iron the area of the hysteresis lobe is such that it minimizes the energy needed for the magnetization and demagnetization process. So these are the energy losses in case of transformer. So you must remember what are the different type of losses and how to minimize it. Okay, that's all about the transformer. Now next topic is coming, that what is the need of the transformer? Need of the transformer is that always power transmission, electric power should be transmitted at very high voltage. And I hope you can remember, in the power generating station, power is generated at 33 kilovolt, but electric power is transmitted at 132 kilovolt. So you see that this electric power generated at the power station should be stepped up to 132 kilovolt before transmission. But you know, in household circuit we use only 220 volt. So before supplying the transmitted power to the household purposes or for the high industry, you know that heavy industry use 33 kilovolt, light industry they use 11 kilovolt. So you see, when the electric power is supplied in different industries to the different household, then power should be stepped down from 132 to 33 or to 11 kilovolt, because light industry they use 11 kilovolt. And then here I'm sorry, it is 11 kilovolt. In the electric power station, electricity is produced not at 33 kilovolt, it is at 11 kilovolt. So you see, you need to step down it to 33 kilovolt or to 11 kilovolt or to 220 kilovolt, so 220 volt. So you see, in this case you need a step up transformer, in these three cases you need a step down transformer. Alright, so these are the utility of the transformer, that why we need a transformer. Then second question, that is also very important question for your board exam, that why the electric power is always transmitted at very high voltage. There are 3 points for this. If the power is transmitted at low voltage, then you see at low voltage what will happen, current will be high. So when the current is high, then heat produced is given by I square RT. So you see, heat produced will be high. So what will happen? Energy loss will be maximum. energy loss will become maximum. Alright, don't write this way, you must write it down properly, that if the power is transmitted at low voltage, then current in the circuit will become high. As a result, a lot of heat will be produced across the transmitting cable. So what I can say, greater portion of the input or transmitted power will be lost in the form of heat energy on the way. Alright, this is the first point. Second point, you see, V is equal to IR. So what will happen? Potential drop across the transmitting cable, it will be high. Alright, so what will happen? The voltage, the power is transmitted at the voltage. That voltage will not be available at the receiving end. Receiving end, the voltage will be less from the transmitting end. Alright, so why receiving end voltage will be less than the transmitting end? Because across the path, across the way, a large amount of potential drop will be across the cable, because current is high. So what will happen? Potential drop will be high. Then next one, third one is that if current is high, then what will happen? Resistance should be less. So resistance less means what? The connecting cable, transmitting cable has to be thick. Thick means what? For long distance transmission, the weight of the cable will be very high. So to support the weight of the cable, you need to construct more number of electric poles. So what will happen? It will increase the cost of transmission. So these are the three disadvantages or advantages, disadvantages of electric power transmission at low voltage. So to overcome these three disadvantages, what is done? Electric power is always transmitted at very high voltage. Next one is advantages of alternating current over the direct current. Now you see, alternating current, according to our necessity, by the use of the transformer, we can step it up and we can step it down. That cannot be done with the direct current. This is the first disadvantage of direct current. Then in case of alternating current, choke coil, although I have not discussed the topic choke coil. Choke coil, by using the choke coil, what you can do, you can make the power loss in the circuit, power associated, dissipated in the circuit almost zero. Alright, but that choke coil you cannot use to control the direct current and to minimize the power loss across the circuit. Then the third advantage of alternating current is that for alternating current, all the equipment we generally use for alternating current, they are durable and they are convenient if you compare to the equipments related with the use for the DC circuit. Alright, so at least 3 advantages of alternating current over the direct current you must learn and remember. That's all about this chapter. Now the last 2 topics that I have discussed, utility of transformer, then why the power is transmitted at high voltage, and what are the advantages of alternating current, that nicely given in your book point wise. I have not written properly on the board, so you can learn it from the book itself. Thank you girls.